There's such high rates of teen birth, and it leads to all these other things. What's strong is like the community that we have. So while we are not necessarily celebrating that a person is a teen parent, having a baby is an act of resistance for our communities because we aren't supposed to be here. Like I feel like I always got condoms on me. My family has started referring to me as the condom plug because
Hello, and welcome to the Real Talk, Real Impact podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Marissa Robinson, and it is a pleasure to have our guest tonight, Dr. Gabrielle Evans-Mitchell. Woo! Thank you so much for joining the show. So, really quick, I want to introduce you so our audience knows a little bit about you. So, Dr. Gabrielle Evans-Mitchell is a sexuality researcher, educator, and proud citizen of the Haliwa-Saponi Tribe, whose work centers the sexual health and well-being of Indigenous, adolescent, and young adult women. Originally from North Carolina, she has taught comprehensive sexuality education since 2016, leading programs for Native youth, healthcare providers, and faith-based communities. Period. She earned her PhD in health promotion and behavioral sciences from the University of Texas Health Science Center at Houston, where she focused on culturally relevant and trauma-informed approaches to care. As a first-generation Indigenous scholar from a rural tribal community, Dr. Evans-Mitchell is passionate about making research accessible through social media, community workshops, and real-world education. So, y'all, give our girl a warm virtual round of applause. Yes, yes, yes. So, Dr. Evans-Mitchell, how you doing tonight?
good. Thank you for having me.
Of course, of course. And thank you for reaching out and wanting to be on the show. We're always so excited to connect with new people. And I hope our listeners are excited because we have a lot of great things that we're going to talk about tonight. So, first and foremost, I would love to start with your story. How did you end up doing the work that you do today?
So at one point, I thought I wanted to be an OBGYN. And then
Mm-hmm.
I went to college orientation and realized how
Mm-hmm.
many biology classes I would have to take and said, absolutely not. I am not
Absolutely
doing that to
not.
my. So I went in undecided and eventually I stumbled across public health and I fell
Mm-hmm.
in love with it. So it was a way that I could still help people without
Mm-hmm.
all of those science classes.
Period.
Um, and I tested out different fields of public health, chronic
Mm-hmm.
disease, got into sexual health, and stayed in sexual health. I've been in sexual health for over 10 years now.
Okay. And so for many people, the story of how we end up in public health doesn't all look the same, right?
Hmm.
A lot of us start out as wanting to be practitioners, but we are practitioners in a different way instead of being a clinical practitioner. Some of us are research practitioners, some of us are something I like to call pracademics, where you're a practitioner, but you're also an academic. Some of us are doing the boots on the ground and doing the surveillance. Some of us are doing just the patient navigation side. And some of us are front facing and some of us are behind the scenes. So public health looks so different depending on who you talk to. And I'm so excited that you are joining us today because you have such a robust background. And we're going to get into that in just a second. So, can you tell our audience a little bit about how you come from both the academic research space and the community education space, and how was being from the Haliwa-Saponi tribe shaped the way you think about sexuality, wellness, and what real health education should really look like?
Yeah, so one thing I've learned throughout this long journey, educational and career wise, is
Mm-hmm.
that I really love being out in the community. I have been at events in drugstore parking lots where we have like a community festival. I've
Mm-hmm.
done the outdoor recruitment at pride events. So I really enjoy like being on the ground out with the community. Which is funny because I can be very introverted sometimes.
Uh-huh.
So I find a way to tie my love for the community and my academic training together because the communities that I aim to serve aren't at institutions. They aren't always at the conferences. You have to meet
Mm-hmm.
them where you are. And coming from a rural tribal community, I wasn't exposed to a lot of these spaces until I went to college. So
Mm-hmm.
trying to take my personal experience with the lived experience of the communities I serve and my academic training and putting it all together.
Mm-hmm.
So taking the things like my dissertation and sharing it on social media, so that because people are invested, they want to know, but they're not going to read the journals. They're not.
They're not.
Um, so just, a combination of my lived experience, my professional experience, and just putting it all together.
Mm-hmm. And so I think you bring up a great point because in many of our minority communities, we have to enter these somewhat pearly gates or large institutions who shall not be named um, to be relevant or have the credentials almost sometimes to even be listened to, and even sometimes then they meaning the masses ignore some of our accolades and ignore some of our titles.
Mhm.
I hold my role as a practitioner and as a researcher very high. And I think it's so disrespectful when individuals are like, "Oh, well, you're not a physician, so why should I call you doctor?"
I worked
There's
hard as hell to earn this
like,
doctor title.
right, what? And just because you're not a physician doesn't mean you're not a doctor and you're not a subject matter expert. And I think in the times of social media and in viral moments, I think there was a discourse more recently about like how it was a haze to get a PhD, or just like there's this dialogue around getting these advanced degrees, and as individuals of color, a lot of times we don't have the option to not get those accolades and those degrees and those commas behind our names, because without it, people aren't listening.
Hmm.
And even when you have them, it's like some of those people still aren't listening. So I would love to talk a little bit more about how a lot of sexual health research, specifically for, by, and of Indigenous communities, comes from a deficit lens, and it does the same in a lot of minority communities too, especially Black women, for example.
Hmm.
You can see the disparity. We talking about gaps, we're talking about things that we don't have, the things. It's never something that's uplifting and positive. So I would love to hear from you. What does it look like to shift from what's wrong to what's already strong in Indigenous sexual health and well-being?
This is something that I definitely have learned along the way, and I'm still learning. So
Mm,
my some of my dissertation papers are still going out for publication, and I'm changing the language so that it's not deficit or risk based.
mm,
So I've had to learn along the way, like open it up with strengths because
yes,
that's important. It's important to highlight those strengths. So one, just a language shift, and I have to push back on it a lot. No, I'm not gonna start like, of course, I have to address the some of the risks and the deficits,
of
but I'm
course.
not gonna. That's not gonna be the big thing, and I'm also not always, if I can help it, I'm not gonna use comparative groups. Like I'm not gonna use
Mm,
comparison groups.
yeah.
Um, so back to your question of looking at what's strong, you have to, and it could depend on tribe, it could depend
Yes.
on community, but looking at one, going in and working with them. So you want to gain their trust. And even as, for example, I've done a lot of work with the Navajo Nation. I am
Hmm.
not from the Navajo Nation, so I even had to build that trust as a
Hmm.
fellow Indigenous person because
Hmm.
that's not my tribe. So
Hmm.
going in and truly learning and building community with these people, and not just because, oh, this is a research project.
Right. Can you
Also,
can we dive in a little deeper to that? Because for some of our audience members, maybe they're trying to figure out, how does one establish rapport when I'm not from the community that is the subject matter experts of the research area that I'm trying to pursue, especially if we're talking about different tribes, or if we're talking about different communities, gender communities, different sexuality communities, different race communities, different ethnic group communities. Can you dive a little bit deeper into
mhm.
that for me?
And I think it may vary based on
Of
people
course, but
and context.
just from your experience. Yeah.
So my experience, I was working in a position where I worked closely with people from the Navajo Nation.
Okay.
So I was already building a rapport with my coworkers and colleagues who are from this nation. And as I was learning the projects, I told one of my coworkers, like, I want to know more about the tribe and like the culture. I know some stuff you can't share with me, but like the stuff that you can you help me understand and learn? Like, what
Mm,
do some of these words means? So wanting to know more just from like a genuine educational standpoint,
mm-hmm.
and then going into spaces with my colleagues and in a sense, having them vouch for me, but also me leaving space for the community members for their voices to be heard.
Right.
I'm here to observe and I want to learn from y'all. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna stand back and this is y'all's space.
Right.
So
Mm-hmm.
not overstepping those voices as
Mm-hmm.
well. And
Mm-hmm.
oh, I mean, honestly, it's just something it takes time.
Yeah. Yeah. Taking time, and it takes building trust. It takes
Hmm.
really taking a step back and observing. And sometimes, even though you may be the subject matter expert, you may be the PI on the study, you may be somebody who is being tapped because of your expertise or because of how you have carried yourself through research or how you can understand what that population is experiencing. We're still not them. And I
Right.
mean them, meaning the populations in which sometimes we're researching or we're trying to uplift. And so that lived experience and centering that is paramount to us being successful researchers and being ones that are not causing more harm than good. And I want to swing back to what's already strong in Indigenous sexual health and well-being, because I feel like you were on a roll and then I was like, but can you talk a little bit more about rapport? Because I think it's important, especially for our young researchers who are out there like, oh my God, I'm not a part of this community, but I want to research them because they're just so bomb, or I need to uplift them. So would love to hear
Yeah,
your
so
thoughts.
the thing that comes to mind is how there's indigenous communities or populations have high rates of teen birth. There's such high rates of teen birth, and it leads to all these other things. What's strong is like the community that we have. So while we are not necessarily celebrating that a person is a teen parent, having a baby is an act of resistance for our communities because we aren't supposed to be here. So whether the mom is
Mm,
14 or 45, we're celebrating the fact
mm,
that new life is continuing to be brought into the world.
mhm.
So in terms of what's strong, we look at that connection to culture and we look at the community and familiar relationships and how we can build on that to educate and try to reduce teen pregnancy. So how do we use this to provide education? And I've seen it where there's service projects or research studies where you bring in dyads. So it's mothers and daughters, or maybe it's some sort of family dynamic where they come in together and you educate both of them on this.
Mhm.
And then they also, at some point, like the teens that I worked with or the youth that I work with, they become peer educators. So we know that kids talk. I mean,
Right.
we all talk,
Right.
but they're sharing this information and these tools and resources
Mm,
with their friends and their peers. So it's a
mhm.
domino effect. So I think it's important to, look at what's the strengths in this community and how can we use those to develop these programs. And also like a program, I designed an intervention during my dissertation, which I was able to pilot it last summer.
Mhm.
And I don't know everything about my tribal history and culture. And I recognize that. So
Mhm.
I brought in a consultant who is pretty much a historian in our tribe to help me integrate cultural teachings to for cultural relevancy and to just kind of strengthen the information that I had already wanted to include in this curriculum so that the youth could tie it in with their culture.
Wait a minute. So how'd you find this person?
So it's actually the vice chief of the tribe,
Okay.
um, in which my
Did
tribal
you already
community is
have
very
a did you are like Okay, can you break down for the audience like what is the structure of the tribe? One, that you did your research on, but two, the tribe that you're a part of.
So I am a citizen of the Haliwa-Saponi Tribe, which is the third largest tribe in the state of North Carolina.
Okay.
We have the oldest and largest powwow in the state, which we just celebrated our 61st powwow couple weekends ago. Thank
Congratulations.
you. So at least in my tribe, we have a chief, we have a vice chief,
Hmm.
we have tribal council members.
Okay.
So and then I mean we have like voting and all the things.
Hmm.
And I'm pretty sure I'm forgetting some of the members of the
Do you have like an elders
politics.
council or anything like that?
Not necessarily an elders council, but there are a lot of elders on the tribal council, if that makes sense.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yep. I
Um,
I got you.
but I knew that the vice chief was like well versed in the history of the tribe and like language
Hmm.
revitalization. So I offered him this opportunity to serve as a consultant on this project, and he was able to provide me with very helpful information as it related to the topics being taught. So healthy relationships, we talked about historical or like traditional roles,
Like gender roles.
like yeah, gender
Hmm.
roles,
Hmm.
and how that might look different now. So just
Hmm.
various things that we were able to incorporate, so that the kids still had like that cultural relevancy.
And I want to just give you your flowers because as somebody who is showing up for her community and trying to think outside the box of how do we rejuvenate culture and how do we make it relevant, but how do we also keep longevity? How do we make sure that this is not an afterthought? This is a consistent place in which we need to focus on for research dollars, support, as well as maybe some lessons learned of where some people can pick up where you left off. Because that's why we do dissertations, right? To
Hmm.
explain or ask a research question and dive a little bit deeper into the specifics and the nitty gritty, and then we come out of that experience with a nugget, a golden nugget of knowledge. And there's only a few people that care about your nugget. And I don't like
Yeah.
that because I think all of our nuggets are important. And we do them blood, sweat, and tears and all them endless sleepless nights with tears. And everybody doesn't appreciate the nuggets. But as a fellow researcher, I heard some really great research strategies that you utilize in terms of observation, in terms of finding subject matter experts that weren't necessarily yourself, what was not yourself, but was other people,
Hmm.
listening to bringing folks of lived experience that have institutional and historical knowledge. I mean, these are gems, y'all. Hello. So if you're tapped in, if you're a young researcher and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to be doing. I mean, we are giving you a playbook here of how does one go about making sure that something is culturally relevant and
Hmm.
sound. And that's amazing work. And I love the fact that you used the your head chief as somebody that could be a subject matter expert and be a consultant, because I also believe in wages, specifically when we're talking about persons of lived experience and we're convening, things like community advisory boards, or we're asking persons of lived experience for their time and a little bus token or a little measly gift card. It's just not going to cut it now because outside is $1 million. So we have got to give people what they're worth and pay them for their expertise and their lived experience. And I think bringing in individuals as consultants, as subject matter experts that are paid or compensated for their time is where we need to go in research. So,
And that's one thing that I really so one designed the intervention during my dissertation, and then like putting it all together to implement
mm,
it. I told a few people, I was like, I am doing the job, me, one person, am doing the job of like three people minimum
uh-huh,
right now.
uh-huh.
But it was nice to see like my little baby come to life. And
Yes.
it felt great to be able to not only give back to the community by giving the youth this information
Mm-hmm.
and compensating them well for attending a
Absolutely.
4-day session, but I also brought in local like people who were facilitators. They were all local to the community. And I was able to pay them well, pay
See?
the consultant. I hired
Mm.
a caterer from within the community
Come on,
and was
feed the people. Hello.
so it just felt great to be able to give back in so
Mm.
many ways to my own community. And the reason that I focus on rural tribal communities is because I feel like we're often forgotten about. Because at least in my experience, looking at the research articles and the studies,
Mm-hmm.
federally funded tribes, I mean, that's where the money is. Like you have to go where the money is, and I completely understand it. But I feel
Right.
like
To a
the
certain
state
extent,
record,
though, right?
right? But I feel like personally, I felt like the state recognized tribes or like the smaller, like mine, tribes are often left out. And I'm like, we need this too. So let's try to fill this
Mm.
gap where we talk about rural tribal communities.
Yeah. And I love that you are unapologetic about that. Okay, period. And we need more individuals like Dr. Evans Mitchell on this planet and many of your fellow researchers that focus on indigenous populations, I think are out there. It's just a matter of who is listening and who has the buy in, who has the dollars. And another conversation that I think needs to be had specifically in public health is because so much funding is getting cut, because we're losing so many jobs, so many people are trying to figure out where their next meal is going to come from, let alone if they can live a healthy life or a full
Yeah.
life, you know? So those things are very real, and our research and our nuggets are really important, but if it's not moving policy, if it's not, you know, this Nobel Peace Prize activity or intervention, it's like, okay, now what? So
Hmm.
I would challenge folks that if you're listening and you're intrigued by Dr. Evans Mitchell's story today, you need to reach out. One, you need to support because we got some journals coming through. We got some publications on the horizons,
Yes.
and we're going to get
Yes.
into that in just a moment. But as young researchers, the only way we can continue to do this work is if we have buy in and if we have support and if we have individuals that find this useful and relevant. Now, to all the beings that be, if there's any folks that need angel investors, folks who are looking for things to fund, hello, this is the we're giving
We're
you
here.
it up
We're
on a
here.
silver platter, right?
We
we
need
we,
the
we are
funding.
here and available. Okay.
We
So
need the funding.
yes, but we also need folks that aren't you and I to care about these issues. And
Oh yeah,
just
most
because
definitely.
we align ourselves with the populations that we also happen to do research or our dissertations on or are advocates for, um, I think that also adds to why we're so passionate and why we love the individuals we love, and
Hmm.
why we fight so hard and advocate and bring these names and these issues to spaces and places that we aren't already in. And so I just want to commend you for not only doing the work that you do, but being unapologetic about it and utilizing your resources from these institutions to make sure that folks are compensated and we're still centering folks of lived experience. So shout out to you for that.
Thank
So we're
you.
going to go to, you are so welcome. We're going to pivot to the next question. And this is about being a first generation Indigenous scholar from a rural tribal community. I think that's like bam, 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 bam. You have so many things that are a rock star epitome in your story, and why you are not only unique but also why you're a badass. Like, hello, first generation, huh? Excuse me, get it right. That's doctor to you. Yeah, hold that. So let's talk a little bit more how it's been about navigating the academia system while also staying accountable to the communities that raised you. Because I think for so many of us, we feel I don't want to say Uncle Tom, but we feel like sometimes we feel like we're scapegoats, or we're not showing up for community because maybe we didn't go to an HBCU, or maybe we didn't go to an institution that serves individuals that look like us, and we went to a PWI, or we focus our research projects on different populations that aren't us because we know it's going to get funded. So can you talk to our audience a little bit about what it was like navigating that?
Hard.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Hard, an adjustment, um, from undergrad all the way through doctorate. It was definitely a learning experience.
Mm-hmm.
I, I was like in the top 15 of my high school class, and then I got to college and I was like, what is this? What is this? I was not prepared. Um, and I think a lot of it is you learn as you go.
Mm,
You find community in people who share similar experiences.
yeah.
Um, College is just hard in general, but especially as you advance further, like I swore during the first semester of my master's program that I was never going back to school again. And then three
Isn't
years
that what we all
later,
tell ourselves? Like this is it. And then
and
you
then
get in
three
there,
years
you're like,
later, I was
boy,
getting a
I got
doctorate.
more in me. I got that dog in me.
And my mama was like, I love you, but you can't call me crying no more because you used up all those phone calls in your master's program.
I'm screaming.
So
Mama
it,
said,
it
don't
was,
call me. Don't call me.
she didn't mean it.
Right,
But
right. We still gonna call her. Thank
it
you.
was, it was hard. And on
Yeah.
top of that, I moved out of state for my doctorate.
Mm.
So fortunately, my best friend was already in her doctoral program, and
Shout
I
out
was
to the
able
bestie
to
doctor. Huh?
learn
Clock it.
things along the way from her experience. And
Mm-hmm.
even like as she went to a postdoc, like I was learning things about a postdoc, and then as she transitioned to faculty, like I was learning all these things from her. So I think that was one thing that really helped me navigate it.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I had to learn how to respectfully say, no, I'm not doing that. So
Tell me
like,
more.
yes, I understand this is how the academy works, or I'm learning that this is how the academy works. I
However,
don't
comma.
agree. I don't agree with it, and this is
Uh-huh.
not beneficial to the people that I'm trying to serve.
Mm.
So
You said that
that
so
was
eloquently.
it's taken a lot of time because there's a lot of times when I'm like, what do you mean? Like, no, absolutely not. I'm not doing it. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's definitely been a learning experience. Um, and voicing frustration to friends I've met in my doctoral program who had similar experiences, and just like having that space to vent, and then we figure out like, okay, how are we going to go about this, how are we going to move
Right.
forward.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely been hard, a learning experience, and something that I'm still in some ways trying to navigate for the sake of having couth.
Ah, that good old couth, girl.
But my face will likely tell it before my mouth does.
It sometimes we just can't hide it, sis, and it's okay. And it's okay.
In a world of hybrid and remote working, I can easily just switch my camera off now.
That is important. And you can hide from some of the microaggressions and somewhat avoid some of the microaggressions that you sometimes have to deal with in person.
Oh, yes and no.
Sometimes.
Sometimes, yes, sometimes.
Yes. Yes. Not all the time. It's not a one
Yeah,
size fits
sometimes.
all. Yeah. Mhm. So, because you care so deeply about making your research understandable and usable, because it's great that we can understand the research. And I think sometimes as researchers, we do a great job at making it understandable. But like, how can one use the research is also just as imperative, if not even more imperative, that you understand what is your role that you play in my research, in my project, in my initiative, or my intervention. So, can you kind of talk about how are we going to keep them accountable when we're over here, trying to make sure that what we're doing is usable? Are like, what does accountability look like for communities that you serve, for allies like myself, for individuals who support Indigenous communities but are not a part of them, for folks who are new to the space or are inspired by your story? How does one hold others accountable? And especially when we know that things get locked inside public journals or private journals or academic institutions or other gatekeeping systems that were never meant to serve us in the first place.
Yeah, so I think one thing too to hold the institutional side accountable is just being respectful and mindful of the communities that you're working with. Like,
Mm,
you're working with them. Like, it is a
right.
collaborative effort. So keep that in mind. And if you're looking for lived experiences, they are the subject experts. Um, Community report backs. Like, it doesn't have to be anything fancy. Like, you can rent a building, have refreshments, and report back the data that you found in a way that they can understand,
Mm,
breaking it down so that it's accessible to them. I'm a qualitative researcher. I Qualitative is very tedious, but I love to hear the stories and I love to try to keep the authenticity
yeah.
of the what the participants are sharing, even if it's going in a journal.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so staying true to that participant's story. So in addition to the community report backs, like I've disseminated my dissertation on social media, as I previously mentioned, so that people who aren't in these academic spaces can know what I did and understand it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Also, so when I did the pilot program last summer, my thing was I told the kids, I was like, you're out of school, like this is not a lecture. Like we're not here to teach at you. Like we want you to be engaged. We're not going to talk at you all day. So when you're working with youth doing stuff to keep their attention and also understanding they need breaks. So I had like we had tons of activities incorporated into the lessons, like, and I had them separated into small groups. So it was a lot. There was quite a few small group discussions, but also we had like flag activities. So like, is this a red, green, or yellow flag? We
Mm-hmm.
had TikTok clips or like short films. We had drawing and like art things that they could do. I also printed out a ton of coloring pages. Because if
Mm,
like I'm not gonna force you if you're uncomfortable, I'm not gonna force you to do it. I mean, I even had my one of my group of girls, they were like, "Can we color while we do this so that like we don't have to look at y'all while we talk about it?" So I'm like, "Absolutely." Like, and I'm
mm,
somebody who needs to do something with their hands all the time.
yeah.
My husband will tell me, he was like, "You're not paying attention." I'm like, "I could tell you everything that happened in the last 10 minutes. Even though I'm over here coloring or whatever it is, like I could tell you everything."
We can
So,
do something called multitasking, which we can
right.
get into that, but some people can't
So
do.
So making sure that like I gave them all of these options to
Mm,
accommodate their needs. So just,
mm-hmm.
accommodating the needs of the communities that you're working with. Don't forget them when you have the data. Don't just go to them because you
Yes.
want data from them. Like work with them, like truly build a relationship with them.
And what else are we like? Absolutely. The goal is to answer my research question and know all of these variables and make sure I can make a sound conclusion and an inference from my research. But at the end of the day, if the participants aren't getting anything out of being a part of the program, you've lost the plot, babe. You've lost the plot. We need
Hmm.
to also make sure that people are compensated, they are either fed, or we're thinking about all these other considerations, because just because something is free, people ain't flocking to the intervention. I can tell you that.
Hmm.
If it's just because it's free or the giveaway is good, there has to be a multi pronged approach. Is
Yep.
it accessible? Does it make sense? Is it an accessible time for everyone? If people are working full time, is it, after school? Is it after work? Is it taking into account that some people are parents? So, what does that look like?
Do
Do
you
you
have
have
transportation
Right. Do you
for
have
them?
transportation? If it's during a mealtime, are you providing a meal? And are you compensating people so that they're still getting and walking away from this experience, maybe with a handout? Maybe because their story was so invigorating, you want to also have them be a co author on some of these publications, or bringing that individual on tour with you when you're talking about this research at an international conference or a national conference. I'm so tired of people, being helicopter researchers, which is where we get in our institutional bags, and we go around, we plop down, and we pick up from that community and we leave. But we never think about what's the give back, where's the follow up, where are all of those pieces. And there's so much trauma and mistrust that has been done in the research community, especially the communities of color. So we know that there is something that we have to do to make sure that we're being clear about what we will no longer tolerate. But we also have individuals like you and myself who are trying to come through the ranks and say, hey, we care about y'all. How can we make this work so you are also getting your needs met, and we're able to move policy, we're able to get funding, we're able to change the stigma or the misinformation that is out there about the communities that we're a part of and we also serve. So thank you for sharing that. And for one of our last questions, so for Indigenous girls and young women listening right now, what does reclaiming sexual health, bodily autonomy, and joy look like in this moment?
That's a good question. And I think about, despite all of the policing of women's
Mm,
bodies,
mm-hmm.
you still deserve pleasure.
Yep.
You still
Say it again.
deserve
Pleasure.
you, you deserve pleasure. You
Yes.
deserve accurate health information, and you
Mm,
deserve the right to make choices for your
yes.
body,
Yes.
your own
Yes.
choices for your
Mm,
body.
I love that. Your own choices. No
Hmm.
matter what everybody else is doing, we can only be concerned about self. Like, yes, we should be making informed decisions with our partners as well. But
Yes.
at the end of the day, we can only control me, myself, and I. So, how can we make sure we're protecting ourselves? We're making the best informed decisions. And if we have a oopsie or we have a situation, being able to talk about it. Like,
Hmm.
we
And
can
knowing
all
that
lay
there are
down together,
resources
but now we
available.
can, huh?
And knowing that there are resources available.
There's resources available, but there's also consequences for our actions. But it doesn't have to be this kind of punitive system of like, oh, you're bad, or oh, you're a hoe, or oh, you're this, or oh, you're that, because I'm a freak. No, you can just be a freak and you can have multiple partners. Some of the people that have the most partners are the most actually sexually responsible individuals. It's the folks that have one or two partners that are over here being irresponsible, and then they're the ones blaming the system and saying, well, I'm not this, I'm not that. Well, you shouldn't have othered and said it I needed to be a hoe to get HIV, or I have a low body count so I could never be exposed to something like syphilis. Uh Wrong. Both of those things are wrong. So it's so important that we continue to have these conversations, especially with our young people, because they're getting their information from TikToks. They're getting their information from music. They're getting their information from friends that have no degrees, no training, no nothing, and they don't have trusted messengers and trusted adult figures that they can have some of these conversations with. So I love that you're curating environments where they can be themselves and also learn a little bit about bodily autonomy, about what it means to have all of the tools and to be responsible. So this is my last question, and for all of my guests, I always ask, where does public health show up in your work and even behind the scenes?
Ooh. I think in my work, just like that community engagement, like,
Yep.
because I learned that in public health. But then behind the scenes, like in everyday life, I'm always asking somebody, like, did you wash your hands? Did you did you wash your hands?
Did you?
Are you gonna wash your hands before you do this? So
Yes. We
I feel
should go
like
back to doing that.
I feel like COVID might have like heightened that for me, but
Yeah, fair
there's
enough.
always some like germ thing that I'm asking people. And
Yes.
I always, and this goes back to my work, like I feel like I always got condoms on me. My family has started referring to me as the condom plug because
There you go.
at
I
one
love
point I
it.
had like 2,000 condoms sitting in my living room from condom donations. And I'm just like, I have condoms, please use them.
Please, please. And I love the condom plug. You need to put that on a t-shirt.
Oh, I have a sweatshirt that says certified condom plug.
Yes, I love it. Yes. Okay. I love it. The condom plug. Period. So, as we get ready to wrap up, for those who are listening in and those who are watching, thank you for sticking in here and listening to our wonderful guest, Dr. Evans Mitchell. Do you have some websites or some places that folks can stay in touch with you? Because I feel like they need to know where you're at and how to find
A-
you.
Absolutely. So website is interwoveninstitute.com. Also on social media is interwoven dot institute. And then my Instagram account is underscore DRGEMI.
All right. So we have a website, we have two Instagrams. So make sure you get over there, follow my girl, get into the research, and support Indigenous communities, support rural Indigenous communities, and support our Indigenous researchers, because that is where the people are. And just because y'all aren't talking about it doesn't mean these communities don't matter. So I want to thank you again for being a part of not only this conversation, but also this amazing dialogue on Real Talk, Real Impact podcast. Thank you all for being, not only showing up, but I want y'all to keep showing up. I need y'all to keep asking questions and keep pushing to be better. And until next time, we'll see you guys. Thank you. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And we're out.